H2K will be sending Giants to the regional qualifier and will be advancing to face Origin.
I didn't expect H2K to show up so strong.
Wow, he's jumped in and he's taken so much damage, and Ryu stays alive.
Going 3-0 against Giants was a huge confidence boost.
I do think that H2K is definitely better than they were in the regular season, so therefore we have to look out for them.
This time, if we go to 5 games, we have a good chance to win against Origin.
Niels jumped on by Lulex. Does he have the damage? Condemn against the wall. Yes, he does. Niels is unstoppable.
If confidence means that I just go into the game and I'm not afraid of who I'm facing, then yeah, we're confident.
And welcome to the European LCS Summer Semis, where it's come down to 4 teams with their eyes on the finals in Stockholm, Sweden, and also the 2015 World Championship. We're coming to you live from our studio in Berlin, Germany. As you can see, everybody is extremely ready to go. The fans light up, and there's a lot of them. Absolutely packed studio. There is Origin, not jumping in the pool just yet, but reflecting on their game just before, and playing a little catch as well, maybe like they will do with H2K. H2K is walking in the building there with Betong with them as well as Lulex, so we know that that is a possibility for this series. I'm Evje Sjogge here with James Stress O'Leary, as well as our guests, LCS jungler Marcel Dexter-Veldkamp and the coach for Rocket, Yamato Cannon. Thank you very much for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
It's going to be a good day, so let's start by pulling up that bracket and seeing where we ended up so far here in the playoffs. Of course, the Unicorns of Love beating out Rocket in that intense series. We'll talk to you about that later.
Sorry, there was a little fist bump action going on
on
stage while the graphic was up. I got a little bit sidetracked. But over on the other side of the bracket, H2K swept aside the Giants in a 3-0 in the quarterfinals. They'll square off against the second seed Origin today. Keep in mind, all 4 teams in this stage of the playoffs will be joining us in Stockholm, Sweden. Yeah.
What are your impressions of how the playoffs has gone so far? Of course, Yamato sadly on the receiving end of the loss.
Unlucky.
Unlucky. Well, unlucky. We'll see who gets lucky here today. There's more on the line than just the summer finals, of course. How far teams go in the playoffs will determine how many champion points they are awarded, which is very important to keep in mind, because with the most points at the end of the season, you get qualified for Worlds as a second seed from Europe, of course, after whoever wins the summer split.
So yeah, H2K coming up in this game right now, it's really important for them to win, because if we assume that Fnatic is going to win against Unicorns of Love, they're most likely going to qualify through the most champion points to direct. So if H2K manage to win this game, then they don't have to play the 3rd and 4th game in Stockholm.
The other side of it, though, is if they end up in the 3rd place game, if Origin win today, that gives us a really hype game over in Stockholm. Again, if Fnatic beat the Unicorns, it will put us in a situation where H2K and the Unicorns are battling for a World Championship seed in our 3rd place game.
Yeah, definitely, and the champion points also determine the seeding for the regional qualifier, Stress, which is also super hyped after the playoffs.
Yeah, because the winner of the regional qualifiers, the team that makes it all the way through to the finals of the regional qualifiers, they're going to get the 3rd seed to Worlds. So win the regional qualifiers, run the gauntlet, and you're in.
So Yamato, you are obviously with your team Rocket in there. What are your chances, you think?
I feel we have a big advantage as the other teams are actually playing still. We have some weeks to prepare. We see all the strategies, so I think we have advantage in that regard. But I also feel that we were kind of warmed up in regards to best of 5s, simply because UO was the first best of 5 we ever had as a team, and I think coming into the gauntlet, I feel pretty confident.
All planned, just going to run the gauntlet and do it that way. Okay,
yeah.
Well, we'll see. Well, with those points in mind, today's matchup between the 2nd seed Origin and 3rd seed H2K has massive implications, as said. And then following that best of 5 here in Europe, the North American LCS kicks off with their first semifinal between Counterlogic Gaming and Team Impulse. And with such a wealth of perspectives on the analyst desk this week, we want the open the floor to you. Send your LCS playoff questions at LOL Esports with the hashtag AskTheDesk, and we'll see what you want to know later in the show. Now, we're going to dial in on the matchup at hand between H2K and Origin, our very first semi-final. And, well, 2 teams who were challenger teams in the beginning of the season as well, but have both gone through such tremendous growth. What is your opinion on just, in general, the way these teams have grown from challenger to this?
I think OG coming into the split was really. I think they exceeded all expectations because they went pretty much undefeated until they faced Fnatic, and then had a slight dip into performance.
We beat them actually.
I'm sorry, I forgot this. Yeah, but no, but coming into the split, OG was pretty strong. Then had a slight dip in performance, but I think right now in playoffs, where X-Peke and Soaz have been performing all the time, I think this is where they're gonna show up again. So I expect OG to come out strong today.
In regards to H2K, I think when they actually started to play, I think they had the most intelligent approach to the game. They tried to play the most consistent way possible from the start. It didn't work out in the start, but as you kind of learn to play in the most consistent way, the final product is going to be the best possible. And with that approach, I actually enjoy what they did and how they've actually grown throughout both splits.
Well, we'll see how they turn up today. Before we go any further, let's run down the lineups rather, starting with H2K on the blue side for Game 1 with Odoamne, Lulex, Ryu, Hjarnen, Kissing, and their coach Prowley. And on the other side, OG, starting at the red side for Game 1 at least, Soaz, Amazing, X-Peke, Niels, Mithy, and their coach Leduc. You mentioned on the strategic approach of H2K to the game. Dexter, if there is one thing that you feel like OG is better than H2K or H2K is better than OG at, what would you say it is?
I think from a jungle perspective, I think OG probably has a slight advantage here in that matchup because I think Amazing is just right now, he's performing a bit better, I think, than Lulex right now. I'm not sure how good he stacks up against Betongnocke, but I would say that Amazing has the advantage over both junglers. And in terms of bot lane, I think we have a slight advantage towards OG too, but I think Yamato can expand on that thought. Why?
Well, pretty much when I'm thinking about the bot lane matchup right here is the fact that Origin, I feel they have a wider depth in their champion pool. I think individually they're pretty equal, AD carries and supports, but I feel the depth of their champion pool on Origin side is just a huge advantage, simply because they've shown up with a Vayne against the Sivir, which is like a counter matchup in some regards. And I think H2K tends to blind pick their bot lane very often with the Thresh blind picks, and I think that's very dangerous against Origin.
We'll see, and we'll dive into the champion pools a little bit more in a second. Something I do want to touch on more holistically for the teams is that they don't do well when they get behind in games. If we look at the statistics, H2K, in 7 games, they've fallen behind at 20 minutes. They lost 6 of those games. Origin fell behind at 25 times, and they lost 5 of those games. Why do you think that is with two teams that are at the top of the table? Stress, maybe.
I think that we were talking about this a little bit earlier before the show, and we were talking about how good Origin are as a mid-game team. Yamato, that was something you feel pretty strongly about, and I think generally that's a massive trend that once they get ahead, they're able to snowball. But when they're behind, it does, when you're playing as a mid-game team, become difficult to actually regroup in a loss. I wonder whether you wanted to maybe expand a little bit more on that, Yamato.
I would like to add, when it comes to high level of play, Origin, H2K, of course, higher level European teams. When it comes to high level play, there comes with a slight respect for the enemy team. You don't sit and wait for them to do mistakes. You try to set yourself up and your composition for to win, pretty much. And usually that doesn't work out because it's a risk. And I kind of respect this type of play because when you're behind, you're supposed to lose anyway.
A couple of people that really try and make it work and get in front early for their teams are the junglers. You touched on it already. Let's look at that a little closer. Amazing versus Lulex, at least here in Game 1. And, well, you mentioned that champion pools might be a big factor coming into this one.
So, I mean, coming into this match, it's really important to say that Lulex's best jungler has been Rek'Sai for the entire split, while he has a backup of Gragas, and they both have like a similar champion pool, but at the same time we saw a bit of a meta shift in the jungle role, where we see more carry-oriented junglers with the Runeglaive coming in Nidalee, for example, and Elise right now. And we know that Amazing, when he was on TSM, he has been playing Elise pretty much as his main champion. So I'm not very concerned about Amazing, but I'm not sure if Lulex can play Elise. Or I think we saw Betongnocke play it, but to what extent can they play it in the best of 5? So it's going to be really interesting to see how deep the champions pool are from Lulex, if Rek'Sai and Gragas both off the picture, maybe, because one gets banned, the other gets picked away, or I'm not sure what to see, but we have to see what the first game shows us pretty much, and if the jungle bans are going to be a thing.
I think the biggest thing about the jungle is the unique dynamic that H2K gave us last week when it comes to actually the ability to bring Betongnocke in as a substitute. That's really unpredictable, but it also can have a negative impact on the team itself for H2K. I mean, you look at, for instance, top and jungle synergy, that is very different with a different jungler. And you know, when we look at the map just as a whole, we wanted to also focus in on the top lane. So if that does get disrupted, how will the different dynamics of the top laners play into this? Because there are are aspects of both Soaz and Odoamne that have very different styles when it comes to top lane.
I mean, yeah, both have been playing different styles, but also obviously Rumble has been a very, very big pick for both teams. Soaz undefeated on Rumble currently, but I also think Fizz has been seeing a lot of play, and especially in this series, we're gonna see probably a lot of Fizz, while also having the possibility of Shen maybe. I don't see both teams as a Ryze player, but Shen might be a pretty big pick because both of the supports also use it. So it's a really big flex pick in that series potentially.
I think it's interesting though with that one, if the Rumble's banned, if the potentially Shen is banned, will Soaz go to the off tanks when, or the AP champions when we know Odoamne prefers to go to just straight up tanks himself? I think that's going to be super interesting to watch.
Yeah, and on top of that, we also took a look at the mid champion pools, and well, there were a lot of champions available for both sides, both veterans. Xpeke versus Ryu, who I don't think there's one or the other that you can say, oh, they will not know what to pick because these champion pools are so vast. So, Yamato, what do you think it will come down to?
Well, I'm taking a look at this graphic, right? And I see a lot of champions that have fallen out of favor in the current meta. And with that in mind, I feel Victor is going to be the contested pick, but I feel a Victor ban is better for H2K than it is for Origin, because I feel Origin kind of need the Victor, because I don't see, like the Vladimir, for example, that Peke has played. It doesn't really make sense when you blind pick up blue side. So I think if H2K decide to ban the Victor on red side, I think they have a massive advantage.
But for you, it's going to come down to the bottom lane. Do you dare, you guys, making a prediction for the series?
If I have to make a prediction,
Yeah.
I think OG 3-1.
I'm thinking 3-2 Origin, simply because I want to give Origin the edge simply because of how H2K have structured their pick and ban in the previous games. But after the first game, I think I will have a clear idea what I think about the matchup, but I'm pretty sure it could go either way.
My prediction kind of depends on something Prolly talked about last week, was he said I didn't know which H2K were going to turn up. Not exactly the safest thing for your coach to really say. If you're a fan, that's a little bit worrying. If H2K show up and they're the top form, I think H2K can take it, but it'll be 3-2 if it is the H2K that we saw in Spring Split.
Yeah, we'll see how everything comes into play. We'll also keep a track of all the picks that are available and how the matchup unfolds. But for now, we're going to send it over to Pulse for some insider insight into our semifinals.
Thank you, Sharks. I'm here with Prolly and Leduc ahead of their game. Now, first off, Prolly, kind of want to talk about Betong Yaka as you brought him in last week. We've seen the dynamics over in Korea with Uzi-Hoon and Faker, but what dynamic does Betong Yaka bring to the team that Lulix necessarily wouldn't?
Well, they both have two, actually really different playstyles and champion pools that complement the playstyles. So it's actually pretty nice because if we feel like the game really kind of needs a change, we have that option because they're just a lot more different than, what you'd think.
Yeah, diversity, I like it. So, Leduc, in this matchup, you have a 2-0 head-to-head over H2K. Now, how do you think this matchup is going to go? How has your preparation been? Have you been focusing on H2K or just yourselves when you've been coming into this game?
Our preparation was definitely focused on ourselves. This also has to do with the fact we played H2K in week 9, so we haven't practiced against them for more or less over a month. In the series against Giants, there was also not that much information you could get out of them, so it was fairly pointless to focus the preparation on them. Yeah, as long as we play our game, I think we're going to be fine.
Okay, well, we'll see how it works out in-game. Now, back to you, Prolly. We had it over at the desk about how you said last week which H2K is going to turn up. How has your preparation been? Do you think the right H2K is going to turn up today?
Man, yeah, with the Jekyll and Hyde situation, we really have to just mimic what we did last week and kind of bring that out. Today, I think everything has gone pretty well, so hopefully the right one will come out, but, we'll have to see.
Okay, well, best of luck, gentlemen. We're going to throw it over to the caster desk to take away this game. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Pulse and Analyst Desk. I'm Quickshot here to bring you this best of 5 with the help of Crepo and Deficio. And before we get to picks and bans, our friend Pyra is still under the weather, unfortunately. We're hoping he's going to get better soon so he can travel with us to Stockholm for the 3rd place and finals. Get well soon, dude. So, patch 5.14. It is the playoff patch for all of the LCS. Origin versus H2K. H2K are on blue side because Origin chose red side. What are we expecting, Deficio?
Well, I mean, coming in here, we have to highlight that Lulix is playing in game 1 for H2K. That meant they banned Elise against Giants in both the games he was playing. Amazing. Used to be an Elise player. I wouldn't be surprised to see that ban coming in once again. But the jungle, that's the matchup I'm looking at.
Yeah, just see how well the support jungle synergies are going and if they change anything from their traditional styles, because we've been off the grid, especially for Origin, like Ducky was saying, for quite a while right now. Things have changed. Even if the patch stays somewhat stale, things over time tend to develop into different directions. For example, right now there's tweets going on about Kog'Maw as an AD carry. Right now, teams are just playing Juggernaut a bit again, playing peel back and just protect the Kog'Maw with the necessary disengage. That could be a good strategy for either of these teams. I'm just wondering what they will bring out.
So this obviously is a new thing now compared to what we saw in the quarterfinals. A lot of AD carry bans coming in with Sivir, Kalista, Vayne as the first three. Obviously, Vayne has been a big pick for Nils. He's often one of the split pushers on the side of Origin before the group for these team fights. And then just full focus on Yanin. I feel like he has enough picks, though, when it comes to like Jinx and like the late game carries. Tristana, he's played it a few times. So H2K might just opt to run this protect the AD carry comp.
Well, there is the Elise you talked about, Deficio. Priority on the AD carries. That means Corki should go up in value, something Origin have played a lot. And actually, both of these teams have got phenomenal AD carries when you look at the league holistically.
Traditionally speaking, yes, Corki goes up in value. However, Kog'Maw does extremely well into him in lane, and just later in the game, Corki obviously falls off because he doesn't scale that well. If you don't really hit that mid-game spike, then a protected Kog'Maw comp could definitely be viable because the strongest early game laner Kalista's out, the strongest utility carry Sivir is out, so that opens up to a lot of options. You kind of don't let the Vayne scale either because you ban there too. If you go for the Vayne Kog'Maw matchup for whatever reason, that would pan out. So interesting, but also you can't really first pick that, right? Because we talked about Soaz in the top lane versus Oruam. The Rumble is up, for example, and that was an extremely potent pick for both these top laners.
And I wonder if Rumble is going to be a thing or it's going to be more bait. And we're going to see some of these new picks we've seen more and more. Like we've seen Riven over in Korea a lot as a counter pick into the Rumble. We know Oruam has been using it. That could be potentially a little mind game we see in the pick and ban phase, but a lot of time being used. And we talked about the Corki.
Odoamne 6-2 on the split with Rumble, Soaz 5-0. It is both of their most played champions, and as we said, with so many AD carries off the table, it's not too surprising to see Corki locked in here.
And this is also a takeaway from Origin, who is a team that really shines in the mid game. It's fairly slow-paced laning phase, and then once we hit like 10 minutes, they start getting roams going from Mythy, joining in with Amazing, and that's where they start snowballing the game really, and it's between 10 minutes and 20 minutes to get these big leads. Corki, obviously, with the Trinity Force, fits in perfectly. It's been early rotated from them very often, so that's been taken away.
Now, while it may seem like an obvious bait for H2K to take that Corki early and Origin perhaps being prepared, you know, Janna might pull out the Janna Kog'Maw, I do like it in a first game of a best of 5 to pick something mid-game oriented with some aggression, because I feel taking the back foot and just letting time scale and taking it slow is fine in the middle of a best of 5, but I really like teams that come out swinging first game and at least put some pressure on your enemy to show something, to reveal something, and perhaps just take them off guard.
And also because both these teams are super snowball reliant. Like once they fall behind, again, we had this on the analyst desk, 5 times Origin have lost. I mean, every game they have been behind at 20 minutes, they've lost it. H2K only won one game where they were behind at 20 minutes. So having a strong early to mid game might be the key to this entire best out of 5. Who can perform the best in the early game? H2K tends to be through the lane swap, where Origin is more based on what Mythy and Amazing can do to try and snowball these lanes here. Now, a Shen coming in early, that's a good start though to start getting these lanes rolling.
Yeah, Shen and Alistar locked in. Usually, traditionally, Shen is obviously a flex pick between support and top lane, but because they locked in a support Alistar, 2 roles are set in stone. A lot of information given away. H2K have pretty flexible in their draft still, and likely that Origin will leave their counter pick as 5th pick for mid lane later on. But I wonder what Niels is going to play with this Alistar in the bot lane.
It's also a departure for Soaz, because in recent weeks he's been playing carries predominantly, not the biggest tank player in history. Odoamne will know the matchup. We'll see whether or not that's going to be a Nautilus top, or if Gnar is something he wants to play. A number of options here for Odoamne.
Are we going to see the Nidalee reaction coming out of Amazing here? It should, because, you know, we see an early game jungler locked in. You have double tanks locked already, so you could add a bit more poke and a bit more pressure in the early game from that Nidalee. Could be solid jungle pick here.
Yeah, otherwise we could just see Amazing stick to Rek'Sai Gragas. They're tested junglers for him, because when it comes to the early game for Origin, Nidalee would fit in for how they want to snowball it, but at the same time, the Gragas has been so important, and the Rek'Sai, when it comes also to scaling up a little bit at least, Gragas with the Sentinel is still the jungler who scales the best into the late game.
Yep.
Even though there's all these early game junglers now, Lulex at the same time, he's not going Nidalee, he's not an Elise player, so we might see some of the old school junglers in that sense here in Europe, even though other regions still heavily prioritize Gragas.
If you're running a protected Kog'Maw composition like Origin is doing right now, I do think the Gragas can complement it very well, because all you really need from your other roles outside of mid lane is peel. Defensive posturing, kiting back in team fights, disengage is all what you want. Keep them locked up as long so the Kog'Maw can keep attacking them over and over. However, we will need a heavy damage mid laner from Peke. Victor is out, so we need to have something that can pack a punch and distract H2K to a sense. Otherwise, it will be too easy to locate the one target you need to annihilate, which is obviously the Kog'Maw.
Yeah, either a scaling mid laner or potentially take a Lulu. If you want to go like full-on Giacomo composition for Peke in the mid lane. This is interesting though, because H2K now steals it away, because at the same time, Olaf in the top lane against this Shen, it's such a fantastic pick against these tanks. And then when you have a Lulu, we've seen Team Solo Mid use this in NA versus Gravity, you speed up that Olaf and he just goes crazy on your back line.
Yeah, I really like the pickup here. Lulu Olaf together as synergy-wise, I think it's fantastic. You know, speeding him up, wild growth on top of him, he literally becomes unstoppable. Switching the Nautilus from flex top lane to support here as well, it is a point-and-click engage that Kog'Maw can't escape, so we'll need something here from Expect at least to react if Niels gets caught and they overextend onto him. We need an answer. In the first few weeks of the split, he was running a lot of Vladimir, you know, for late game damage and scaling, but what is he going to do?
We'll find out shortly, but to go back to the point you made much earlier, Crepo, H2K put together a composition that wants to get to you and wants to get to you quickly. We'll see if they can execute as well as they did against Giants last week. Probably said it himself, he hopes to mimic his quarterfinal performance and see if H2K can upset the apple cart and take Origin down. It will be the Ahri as a last pick for Origin.
In terms of safety though, if Origin get to the mid game, they can rotate Niels down to the mid lane and put Ahri on the side lane as a bit of an assassin, roamer, and skirmisher that kind of can survive safely on her own. So they do have a ticket into the late game farming-wise. Just need to make sure that they don't give up too much of the map in that process.
It's just such a scary mid game though for H2K. Olaf is such a good champion and starts snowballing even early on. Get him that level 6, get him that Black Cleaver as the first item. And first of all, Shen is not going to be a concern for him. And then in these fights here, there's not enough that can stop an Olaf in this game. I mean, we're almost looking like an Anivia putting up a wall in front of him. So H2K have a very, very, very powerful mid game. They have the Lee Sin to secure as well the early vision. We know that Lulex likes to provide. It's often the best he can do for his team in the early stages. Let's see what Origin can do though with this pick for Pick in the mid lane, because I like to see what he normally does in a playoff match.
Absolutely everybody wants to see it. Prolly and Ducky shaking hands. And without further ado, it is time to hit the rift and find out which team will advance to the Summer Playoff Finals.
It's always the best team that will win the best of 5, so if we can hold our focus on for 5 games, we have a good chance to win against Oregon. We know we can beat them. In the split, we went 0-2 against them, but I don't think best of 1s does matter that much. We want to win playoffs. If we win playoffs, there's nothing to worry about.
I want to get to the finals. It's a really big day to us.
It's a best of 5 between the second and third best summer teams. Origin versus H2K. We're on the rift to find out who will be our first summer finalists.
And Origin sticking to what we saw in the last few weeks of the LCS, where they're starting using more globals. We had some Twisted Fate coming in, we saw Shen support, and now Soas playing it in the top lane. It is very important for Origin in this game. They can use the window where Soas can TP down to the other side of the map and start snowballing the mid and the bot lane. Because one-on-one against this Olaf, especially once we get that first item, that's where we start seeing the problems coming in for Origin.
The real benefit of double global only comes out on the second cast though. If Shen ultis in first, then goes back to lane, teleports on cooldown, then teleports down again. That's where you get the clear value from. The card's going wild.
Advantage Peke. Damage favored Origin.
So H2K invading in, placing the 3 wards so we can basically spot every single entrance, needing just one around the mid lane to see everything. Origin obviously gonna mirror it. So not a whole lot happening here.
There's too many syllables in Origin apparently.
I want to see if H2K opts for, I wouldn't call it cheesy, but one of the things you can do with Olaf in a lane swap is where you go in and you make sure he takes some damage on these jungle camps in the early game. He can even tank up a few minions, and he drops fairly low on HP, so his passive kicks in, the extra attack speed. And when you have these fast pushing lane swaps we see in Europe and in North America, you can just take down these towers so fast. And even 10-15 seconds can matter when it comes to making the next move after the tower goes down. Early on though, Lulex and Odomne is just beating the wolf camp.
I mean, we've seen that before in the past where OAS would on purpose tank tower shots to make that quicker. However, nowadays we bounce the way back to the top laner, so you don't really want to lurk around in that top lane on 20% HP, because then it's an easy, pick off from the opposing team.
You also have obviously the teleport, so you take the tower, go back and you can return to lane, and then you have that situation where maybe possibly H2K can use the fast tower to swap down earlier before Origin can either take down a tower or recall in time. Early move in the mid lane, level 2 for Kasing, he got that on the Grump.
Yeah.
Pekka needs to be careful.
That is the benefit of doing camp in noticing that it is indeed a lane swap. You just give full XP to support starts roaming, and then mid lane's under pressure. Traditionally though in Europe, in lane swaps, mid lane has been pretty action-free. It's been a 1v1, no jungler involved, so should be a true test to the skill of these mid laners in the next, say, 3 minutes. Once these towers go down, lanes go neutral again, then we can see some roams and ganks. 3 people in the top lane, 3 people in the bot lane, junglers are jungling. Pretty standard European lane swap overall.
And we had a bit of a discussion regarding the lane swap earlier this week between H2K and Origin, who's going to come out ahead. We'll take a look at some of the averages here in terms of kills, dragons, etc. We'll see whether or not the averages hold true, because as you said, Origin have been in the dark for a little while.
Yeah, interesting. Amazing join party in the bot lane to push the tower down quicker. He forwent the Krugs. Perhaps he did one big one. No?
So basically, we got blue buff for Odomne. He took the one together with Lulex. Obviously, that's what you can do with the Sin pick. You don't really need that blue buff early on, so he's going to get a bit of an advantage. And of course, he bounced the wave up top. We're going to have to see Origin as a team is sending back SOAS. So this wave is going to push down towards Odomne as long as H2K bounces it correctly, which means SOAS might be in a little bit of trouble when it comes to catching some farm.
And that was the reason Amazing showed up bot. They realized that this tower was going down too slowly, but in their strategy, Origin seemed to favor bouncing the way back to the Kog'Maw, who has farm priority #1 to get him fed in this composition. So they want to get SOAS back to the top lane as quick as they can. That's why Amazing stopped jungling, went down to that tower. Interesting adaptation here. Let's see if it pays off. Obviously, Kog'Maw, with the safety of his turret behind him, wants to keep farming.
I would love to see Lulex go top now, once this wave starts pushing down towards Odomne, and take an early gank on SOAS. If you can shut down a Shen in the early stages, he never gets to apply that global pressure without losing something. Both junglers are thinking the same though. Amazing is here to protect his top laner. Lulex is gonna connect though.
He does. There's the resonating strike. Amazing's in a little bit of trouble before a decent trade. Forced to flash defensively. Odomne has Ghost. The Viking is coming in. Another Sonic Wave with red buff connects, as does the Undertow. Amazing and SOAS turn back in. First blood may be secured by Origin, and it will. SOAS flashes forward. It's a trade. Equalize. Odomne now has red buff and will stick in lane with those vicious strikes.
So both top laners here getting the early kills. Lulex, he jumped in on his own, and we saw Odomne with the Ghost. He was trying to follow. Obviously doesn't have the same kind of mobility as the Lee Sin, so a trade. Wave is still pushing down towards Odomne, so he's gonna have a small experience lead from this one here, because Origin decided to send SOAS back to that top lane and say, you're not gonna stay, but that's for Nils here on his hyper carry.
Good read by Amazing, showing up where he was needed. Luckily, he gets the body slam on Lulex. Can't imagine how that play would have went out should Lulex have flashed the body slam and still kept going aggro, because then obviously Odomne could come in, connect those axes, pick them up again, throw them out again, and eventually kill both of the targets. So good thing for SOAS here. He's actually leading in CS now too, because he managed to safely push in that wave, because he had the better HP at the end of that trade too.
Talking about the lane swaps, as things seem to now have settled down a little. Towers traded to Fisher, I believe. You cursed H2K earlier in the split.
Yeah, sorry.
Breaking down their lane swaps, and then all of a sudden H2K started to fall to pieces. This is not the same mistakes that we were seeing towards the end of summer. Even trades back and forth between both teams.
Yeah, it's what we saw against Giants as well for H2K. They were so much better in these lane swaps, and it gave them a huge advantage in game 1 and 2. It was not until we saw standard lanes, they started struggling a little bit. I think taking a bit of a trade. Not a whole lot's gonna happen here. Now we kind of reset the whole map. We're back into standard lanes. 80 carry-wise. Nils is slightly behind on experience, but he has the wave pushing in towards him.
Yeah, lane is a little stale and rough at the earlier stages, but once these carries hit level 6, then the poke potential comes in. Obviously, the better skill shot master will end up winning that lane, but obviously Kog'Maw scales better. Both are aiming for a Triforce spike, but I think Triforce on Kog'Maw is such an interesting concept because it's like an early mid-game spike item on such a late-game hyper carry. Just a contrast here.
Oh, a little bit of an engage in middle. Amazing and Lulex, they're both reading the same playbook because they're both in the same area of the map once more.
And Lulex been very, very active. Notice how the top lane was pushed. Odoamne.
Hey!
Fine. Just checking, you know, he wants the pink ward. But notice how it's Odoamne with the pressure in the top lane, meaning that Lulex can freely be around the top side and move in for a gank. He finds Amazing, he forces a flash, so decent start for him on Lee Sin despite dying up in that top lane.
However, in the Shen Olaf matchup, yes, Olaf will have the pressure, but from level 6 onwards, Soaz can always arrive at a whim. Just simply cast the ulti, worst case teleport afterwards, and you're still fine. So good read from Odoamne to use that one level advantage where you can make a pick where Soaz can't immediately react.
And that's why we're gonna have to see H2K. Once they shove in the top wave, that's where you can start making the plays. Once you see Soaz stuck on a tower and Odoamne is free to roam as well, you can use him. You don't want to take a fight otherwise if you know the Shen can just join in instantly. Because that's where he's the strongest, when he's using his own lane pressure onto the other lanes with his global. Early Dragon started from Origin here. H2K not responding at all, staying very far back on the map.
There we are. We did see Kissing just on the side of your screen. First time playing on this Nautilus. I believe he caught Peke with that dredge line, but Dragon #1 goes to Origin, taking advantage of H2K's back timing from that bottom lane.
That's despite H2K having very good early vision in the river. Notice the 3 pink wards around mid. Rio has been having basically a safe lane where you can just constantly shove it in when you play against these roaming assassins. If you keep them stuck under their tower, obviously they're never going to be able to leave without you spotting them, and their kill pressure goes down for Peke. We know also he is a mid laner who likes to sit, obviously, and farm in the early stage.
Soaz is baiting in Odoamne, but look on your minimap. Approaching is the cavalry. Kog'Maw and Alistar are on their way. Soaz might be able to just bait in Odoamne and make him a little bit too overconfident. However, bot lane's empty, so they should spot that ward. Bottom lane here for Origin as well, so they can spot where exactly the support or AD carry will be. The lane's pushed up. So Origin are working with a lot more information right here.
Well, there's the Ragnarok burn. The moment the taunt lands from Soaz. And with the support, it looks like Origin have set their sights on another outer turret. Nobody from H2K has responded yet. So Origin are going to get a little bit of time to get some auto attacks down.
Kissing did read the situation though and recalled very early from the bottom lane to join. Odoamne here, they might even try and look for something. Still 3 guys. Odoamne, he's toast.
He's no ulti, gets taunted. And that was just too easy from Origin.
Yeah, you can't go for that play when your Corki is pushing out the bot lane. You know the top side of the map is populated by 5 Origin members in the worst case scenario. But the worst case scenario is also likely because Hjarnan has been pushing that bot lane constantly, has found nobody defending that at all. And now obviously Soaz has one of his 2 globals, 1 teleport summoner spell used to go to the bottom lane. Good adaptation, good map play by Origin.
And now Lulex has to show himself in the top lane to defend the wave. That opens up for Amazing to get a free gank on the other lanes, even with Shen teleport available. Whenever you force that jungler to just sit and defend lanes, it gives you so much information on the map. Amazing gets a Rift Scuttler, check the mid lane as well, because Lulex was sitting there trying to clear out the last few waves. Big mistake from H2K. They could just take the wave and just farm. You don't have to force anything right there.
Origin not overstaying their welcome in the top lane. We can see that Niels has already back to pick himself up a Zeal before resetting back into the lane. And the lanes have just swapped now, once again. Odoamne and Soaz move down to the bottom. And as it stands, Origin have just got small advantages that they keep accruing as the minutes roll by.
A little hesitation from Niels. He went to the left side of his base, only to turn around and go to the bot lane. It seems that he values the safety of his own turret behind him over pushing potential on an extra turret from H2K. I think that's the right choice. When you're playing a late game scaling hyper carry with a protected Kog'Maw composition, you really just want to be safe. He picks up the jungle camps along the way as well as you can spot on your minimap. Mid lane's trading even, and Amazing, he's just providing pressure. Just everywhere he needs to. Even if it's in full vision, he doesn't really care. He can still start clearing one of these 3 defensive pink wards from H2K, and Origin can slowly creep out the vision on the minimap.
Well, we can see how Amazing needs to always respect where Lulex is because he's fallen slightly behind the early stages. 7 on the side of Lulex, 6 only for Amazing. So he doesn't want to go all in for the gank. He's just there, as you said, Krepo, to add a bit of pressure, help maybe clear out some vision. This mid lane tower is open though because Peke used his entire mana pool and recalled. H2K though not going to be able to take down because Origin, again, both teams are constantly just moving members between these lanes and trying to always respond to each other.
This obviously leaves open both sides lane. Shen is pushing on an empty lane on the bottom lane. Kog'Maw on Niels is pushing on an empty lane too. So if they survive that push, which they did, then again they have the first move to make, because now they have side lane pressure, mid lane pressure since Pekka is coming from a base, and that traditionally leads into support and jungle grouping up and moving into the enemy jungle for deep wards. So now removed 2 out of those earlier 3 pink wards already. So Origin, they were at a risky point, but they didn't break, and now they can capitalize on that advantage.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that Kesing is following Yanin to the top lane here. It's just a Shen on his own. That meant the bot lane suddenly was super open, and Origin walked in, got full vision. Lulix can't do anything on his own. He needs his support to help. So at least we have a 2v2 battle. Always with respect, though, for the potential globals that can join. Source is going to get all the 5 minutes. Look, he's sitting ready in the bush in case a play happens. Otherwise, he's just waiting for the wave.
We did see the moment Oduwamne moved into the bottom lane and Origin pushed into the tower. Neil's backed away. Origin not only have some deep vision, they've got the fan support behind them, and both of these teams seem to be reading each other's moves relatively well. Even on gold, even on towers. Other than the dragon advantage and some vision that Origin have deep, they may have control over the pit once it spawns for the second time.
The way the lanes were distributed about 1 minute or 2 minutes ago, that's exactly what Origin want. They want the enemy AD carry to face off against the Shen without turret pressure. There's no way Hyana was going to get that tier 2 tower down. That means any fight, any play, any action on the bottom side of the map will result in a straight 5v4, since Corki can't cancel Shen ultimate either. Such a just big pressure and map advantage for Origin. Then they can get deep vision, and they will likely try and capitalize on that division with a dragon. However, that's what H2K is trying to prevent right now. They're trying to ward around the dragon pit. As you see in your minimap, Lulex is skirmishing around right there.
We can also see how Yanin went back, couldn't afford the Trinity Force, so instead upgraded his boots to be ready for this dragon spawning here. Everyone has the timer, obviously, especially here in 5:14. So now H2K setting up. Black Cleaver is completed. That's the first big spike for Oduwamne. And then also the boots now for Yanin.
There is 1.4k gold unspent on Neil, so he has the base to get that, and dragon spawning in 10 seconds. Pressure's in the mid lane too, so Origin, their timing's not working out for this next dragon.
Just wanted that one more wave to be able to afford the Trinity Force for Nils, and that's going to give up at least the river control. H2K might not be able to get anything else.
However, if they lose dragon, then they can capitalize with an extra mid lane tower that likely will be exposed. You know, teams moving to dragon, leaves mid open, you can punish that. You can roam to the top side if SOAS can manage to get the push going. So there's still options available, because H2K did not manage to take that dragon in that 20 to 30 second window.
Due to this fairly slow early game in the mid lane at least, Pekka didn't go for the Luden's Echo rush we've seen a few times. If you get the large rod on your first back to 1250 gold, so instead, Morel Nomicon, not the same kind of burst, but in a long extended fight with the cooldown reduction, Pekka can still be very dangerous.
It feels like H2K is afraid to commit. They had a distinct window, 4v5, if they tracked the items on the Kog'Maw, if they tracked his base timing, they could have known that he had to base, or at least be 2 items down in a team fight with an earlier game AD carry. They could have contested that dragon, they could have taken that dragon, especially with their composition, which thrives in grouping up. You want to speed up the Olaf, send them in, land the initial poke with Corki, and just straight up engage, but they're giving Origin these dragons pretty much uncontested.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda, Crepo, and as you mentioned, Origin will take an advantage in the objective side. We do see Niels is still marginally down in CS, however, his gold has been spent on the Triforce. And for H2K, they have done a lot of work on Pekka's tower, so we'll need to see if H2K can knock it over. Both of these teams very, very even. And this is a little bit, I don't want to say unexpected. We did feel once a team got a lead, they would be good enough to close it out. But we're approaching 20 minutes and trading blow for blow thus far. The safe play in game 1 of the series.
It is 2 very, very good early game teams. 2 teams who got 5 and 7k goal leads against Fnatic when they faced them. So this is where the teams are strongest. These early to mid game transitions, and then obviously can get that lead and start snowballing it. Because as we mentioned, once they start falling behind, they really don't do too well.
Yeah, they really do not. Analyst Desk talked about it, and there's your stats. Goal lead at 20 minutes. Look at those win-loss ratios, but the more impressive or disappointing is the loss record. 1-6 when H2K are behind at 20, 0-5 when Origin are behind at 20. With a few more towers falling, these gold leads could spike.
I like this play here for H2K. Obviously, Origin is trying to mirror it in the top side also with the dual lane. But H2K as a team, didn't necessarily have to take any fights early on, because you can still wait for the Trinity Force to be completed. You can wait for the Olaf to scale up a little bit. Lulu maxing Whimsy second in the mid lane again to add more mobility. So like you scale really well with the levels and a little bit of the time. You didn't have to all in early game. So I think H2K has been playing okay. Sitting back a little bit, 2 towers now for them, or 3 towers, sorry.
I don't quite agree though. If you look back for the last 5 to 6 minutes, not a single long cooldown ultimate has been used by either team. That has to be almost in Origin's favor, because they're scaling comfortably into the late game. Not a single play was set up by H2K. They had a win on a dragon, but they could have sent Olaf downwards. However, finally some action here in the mid lane.
Well, Wild Growth not going to be used yet. Ryu flashes the engage. Looks like it will fizzle, but they get the summoner spell.
Back to the point though here. Keep my
Hang on, teleport's going on.
Teleport, yeah.
Sorry, Deficio, I'll have to cut you off as here comes Oduwamne. Reckless swing, will throw down as Yon and takes out Peke. Niels and Mithi trying to get out. Stand United was fully channeled in Soaz with a great taunt, but Amazing comes over the wall to take out Lulex. Bounces back Kasing, and they end up trading 2 for 2 in the re-engage.
The 2 for 2 in the end here. H2K showed what they can do with the Olaf. TP in behind, now all cooldowns gone real. Maybe looking for more, but has to be careful.
Not going to connect to the taunt from Soaz, and H2K not relenting the pressure. Niels is low on HP, and H2K may get a lot of damage on this inner turret.
I like the adaptation from Kasing though. He walked up towards Mithi and said, no, I'm going for Pekka instead. Dredgeline connected. Immediately got blown up. Soaz wasn't even ready for it because he ultied Mithi. Good thing about Amazing though, he saved that fight. He came in with the body slam flash over the wall, and then a good casket to knock in whoever it was, Kasing into the tower, get another kill. That fight could have gone way differently. Watch that again. Ryu, and so poured it in. Good flash though.
Good flash. Pekka trying to save his charm as well. See when is Ryu gonna react in time. And now it's just TP's coming in for both top laners. And obviously return Mithi taking so much damage before he has a chance to really use his ulti.
Ulti speed delay. Just watch the Dredgeline here from Kasing going on Pekka, and then follow Amazing as he comes over the wall from the bottom side of your screen.
And here's the thing about this comp H2K is running, and why I think they didn't have to make any plays in the early game. The fact that for the next 10-15 minutes, this Olaf is going to be able to single out targets. Corki is going to be relevant in terms of damage, and even the same for the Lulu. They don't have to worry about how late game damage is going to be from Niels, because it's still such a long time before we hit it. And when you face the Shen in the early game, you always got to respect the impact he can have. Great base stats, the ulti of course to join in on the fights. So H2K have been waiting for at least one item completed on every carry before saying now we want to start taking the fight. Traded 2 for 2 though, was very close to the tower, and that cost him a bit.
Luckily before the fight broke out, H2K did get that additional tower, so it has given them a marginal gold lead as we approach 20 minutes. At what point do H2K start challenging Origin on Dragons? Maybe this next one. They do have those items you talked about, Deficio and Oduwamne and Soaz going top, but there's no TP for Oduwamne, whereas Soaz has Stand United and his teleport available. Map play pressure should be in favor of Origin.
Yeah, Niels is stuck in the bot lane split pushing. Origin's one of the few teams that actually keeps Niels in that bot lane once split push phase starts. Pekka could be trying to assassinate people there too. I think Origin would be fine trading even a tier 2 tower right now to get their 3rd dragon of the series, because that just puts them so close already to a 5 dragon potential win condition, especially with a composition that is fine in the late game. You can even give up a couple later on and still get to that magic number 5. So let's see if H2K is finally prepared to commit for a dragon fight, and if it works out.
Origin do find themselves down in CS. Pretty sizable margin for Niels. Amazing does have some kills to counterbalance the fairly hard farming that Lulex has been putting on, and of course, Gragas scaling will be very good. But this is the last outer turret remaining for H2K, and Peke takes a little bit of an uneven trade before backing off. Switzerland's connects. Oh, Deficio, they may want this. There's Ragnarok down. Ghost will be up in a few seconds for Odo, but no ultimate for a potential dragon fight.
2 very key ultis gone. Pekka's obviously on the Ahri, and then the very important one for H2K. The entire comp is built around Odo and popping that ulti and just running in like a truck and hitting Nils in the face. Needs to go back and defend though. So right now Origin have the potential 5-4, but they're back in very far back with no ulti and Pekka. They give up this dragon. So once again, H2K have been waiting for this mid game, and that's where they're turning on the power.
I do like the combination of slows that H2K can manage to produce. If a Glitter Lance lands, it probably guarantees that the next axe is going to land, guarantees the next axe is going to land, guarantees the next Glitter Lance is going to land. So really good chain CC potential on key members, forcing Expect's ulti pretty much there, but trading tower for Dragon on the side of Origin. Not too bad. I think they're pretty happy with this.
Yeah, you stop again, as you mentioned, their potential 5 dragons coming in. Getting the first one, amazing. Takes away a book for himself. So Origin staying around the Baron on top side, but don't really have any vision to place and secure anything. So once again, Dragon is gone and all the teams reset the map a little bit. H2K has no reason to go in and face check this Baron here.
Both of these teams very, very even in the first game of the series, and now we see who can play the map more effectively. With all outer turrets down, slightly more global pressure from Origin, they should have some tools to push out. Teleport will be up for Odo as well, so see that come into effect. Odo has used the Ghost, and a very good ulti will avoid the knockback.
Now Origin's leaving that bot lane pushing for quite some time. They were using it just to buy some time and fake a Baron bait because they had more members concentrated in the Baron area. However, this just gives a... Yeah, teleport. Soaz has to teleport right now because he was making for a pick. So they're investing time into making a pick. If it fails, that would mean Soaz loses his teleport. So now the map should be in favor for H2K.
Remember, all of us no ulti right now. In case a fight breaks out, because Shen can still join. Mithy's looking for it. They're not that afraid of Odo if they can always CC him and just knock him away. H2K going in the
Lulex gets knocked back, he gets knocked up! Wild Growth will not save Lulex's life! There's the Stand United into the flash! Ryu's been taunted and taken out! Amazing, drops the barrel. Hyonin has flash and heal, but he's holding on to them, he's taunted. It does not matter! Origin find 3, and look at Baron!
That was not your fight to take, H2K. Lulex jumps in way too aggressive. There's zero vision in that jungle either. Origin gets everything they want. Odo, you better pentakill now.
Well, Taunt doesn't connect, but we did see the depth charge knocking up Origin. Baron is still being ticked along. Ragnarok is up, but Odo is exhausted. Flash over the wall from Niels. Baron will take him out. Amazing, still ticking on Baron. Well, H2K get the delayed ace. Baron should be secured here for Origin at the cost of Niels' life.
Yeah, H2K taking a fight at that point may not be that bad, but doing a max range Lee Sin Q connecting in full vision. It is incredibly easy to read how that was going to go. And the only person, watch this Q connect, 1 second, 2 seconds. His mind is telling him no, but his body's telling him that the only person he can kick is Alistar. It's not a good thing to tell your body. And obviously Lulex drops, and then just watch, 2 offensive flashes here. First taunt flash on Ryu. Amazing connects with body slam flash because he wants to get the kill. Here, combo's going to connect by Mithy. I think it's another flash used offensively. Look at Peke. He just wants to connect the charm in time. Another offensive flash coming out. So 4 flashes used by Origin because they know they're going to win that fight, and it will get them a Baron.
Man, the minimap, if you guys were looking during that replay, again Odo, he was running down from the top side. He wasn't even near. And Lulex goes in. That is so difficult as well for teams, because how do you tell that guy, don't jump? And he's already in his mind being like, I can make the big play right here. I can get that kill, secure the Baron. And the team is just be like, no! And he's flying in, and then he just dies.
Do you think it is because he has a substitute on the bench waiting to potentially come in? Is that, because you say always like, yeah, when things go bad, we can have a sub coming in. But when you have the guy really sitting there waiting for you to make a mistake, perhaps that prompts you to make these plays where you think, yeah, I have to show something big or I'm out.
I have to carry, or I may get benched. It's a question we may have to ask H2K later, because that team fight cost H2K 5 kills in total, a few thousand gold, the Baron, and with the global pressure from Stand United now available, Soaz is going to have a lot of fun pushing these lanes out. The rest of Origin are grouped down bottom.
Yeah, we just talked about how these teams are so good at pushing the leads they have. Origin already gonna use the long range of Niels, but he has to be so careful getting close. You never want the first axe to connect when you have no flash on the side of Niels, because then the next one is gonna fall on the next one. So as though, as you mentioned, just by pushing, you buff up these minions. Love it.
Second item, Thorn Mail, to counter both Olaf and Corki. Hell, even Lee Sin. He decides to throw some autos down, and with the response from H2K, Origin now have a large number of auto attacks on the bottom turret. Explosive cast used to slow down the engage, but Amazing should be tanky enough to escape, and it looks like the cannon minions took out the tower in the middle lane. So advantage Origin once more.
Not sure if Lulex didn't have a ward to connect to there, because I think he honestly could have kicked back Amazing and killed him this time, but he played very defensive instead. Instantly just jumped back to the minion. So H2K managed to defend at least 1 tower, but they're still now falling behind. 2 dragons, third one coming up soon. Origin, prime position to take the next one. And H2K's window
is closing. There is one small solace from the last few times we did see Origin, when they had a lead and when they were pressuring towers, at least towards the end of the split. They sometimes stuck around a little too long. They sometimes got a little caught out.
That's when they were playing for fantasy, though. This time they're playing for a potential pickup to go into Worlds. I think it'll be a slightly more tempered execution. I liked it at the start of the split, you know, going for those extra kills. Fancy Niels having the highest KDA of a single player in the history of LCS on this Urgot game, I believe it was. Not quite as audacious this game, and they don't need to. But right now you see the difference as well in just instant builds. Even though the build for Corki and Kog'Maw are pretty much similar, maybe just the boots differencing, but in terms of gold spend, so much more damage on the side of Kog'Maw already, and the game's only 27 minutes in. It's only gonna get worse.
Uncontested Dragon for Origin. As long as Niels continues to scale up, he's gonna have the damage to finish it off. The one caveat, if H2K find an opportunity for Odoamne to get in Niels' face, that could be the only way they can claw back his gold deficit.
Exactly, we're only 27 minutes in. The Olaf is still gonna be extremely powerful when it gets to connecting or trying to take down this AD carry. There's still decent enough damage from Jan, and he hasn't fallen completely off yet. So H2K is not out of the game. They just made it so much more difficult for them to win it.
Now when Origin starts committing on these deeper towers though, it does open them up very easily for flanks, and that is traditionally the counter to like these one type of carry setups with low mobility. Get your Sin on the flank. Don't go from the front door. Take the side door or the back door. Get behind them, kick them into your team, and then Olaf can wreak havoc. But then Lulex will need to split off here, get some pink wards, find an opening somewhere, because we saw it before. If he goes for the straight up instinct from the front, it is too obviously. You have a knockback from Alistar, knockback from Gragas, knock up from Alistar. Anybody can stop that combo. Worst case, Niels can even flash as it's about to come available again.
Look at the setup here for Origin. They have a slow push going in the top lane, massive wave being built up, Source sitting in mid, keeping Odoamne busy, and the rest of Origin on the bottom side. So you have 3 lanes effectively now pushing in, using the minions really well. It opens up for a very easy rotation later on once they take down this tower, in towards mid and then towards top, which also gives you Baron control right after, because that's coming up 1 minute 50 seconds. So they're setting up the map really, really effectively. All they gotta avoid is the engage.
The flash hook, Kasing gets taunted, he's now in trouble. Wild Growth will not get used by Ryu, he's holding on to the cooldown. Support from H2K dropped as Origin looking for an escape route, a re-engage from Amazing. Here comes Odoamne. He's ghosted into the fight and we've got a battle on 2 fronts. Lulex is being focused out by Soaz and Amazing before using the kick defensively. Amazing should be dropped. No! He stays alive. Soaz connects with a taunt. We did see a kill off screen. Odoamne is down. Soaz and Amazing zoned Hjarnan the entirety of the fight, and Soaz is going to get out alive.
H2K keep taking fights, but Odoamne is not there. He's the key part of your competition. There's not a whole lot of value in a Lulu Corki together. They don't have any damage without Odoamne there. Another poor engage, in my opinion, from H2K.
Yeah, very forced hard engages, and the problem is, if the enemy team spends time killing your support, like here on Kasing, for example, look where Odoamne is right now. You want to use that time to have Odoamne hit the enemy carries at the same time. Watch it as he comes in from the left flank right now. You also will see the value from an exhaust, while the slow is obviously negated through the ultimate from Olaf. The damage reduction part is still applied, so that means you can still shut him down a little bit. Eventually, Mithy is peeling a beautiful double knockup. Speke somehow managed to survive, dodge those axes, and eventually Rio will get the kill. But overall, Origin's playing these fights smarter, better, and just more well-paced.
Odoamne got 1 reckless swing off towards the end of that fight.
Baited.
And Niels was free hitting the entire time, so well played by Ryu to at least get the kill there.
That might actually be worth it. Just sacrificing 1 kill, not with a shutdown, but just to get the enemy flash down, because you're about to set up Baron baits. Having an extra carry there without a flash, yeah, could prove worth it.
And H2K needs to move their massive red arrow key they have above the head of Pekka over to Niels, because Odoamne just ran right by him, being like, I don't care about you, I'm gonna chase this Arya who can jump around.
Yeah.
Didn't get to use his ulti at all. Complete waste from H2K, and these fights basically cost them everything in this game.
6,000 gold down, that's H2K. The 2 dragons down, 2 towers down, and Origin have got the vision to set up for 2 Barons to make it go down. We did see Soaz back to respond to Odoamne down in the bottom lane. Lulex takes a chunk of damage, but there's not enough burst here from Pekka to solo out the fairly tanky Lulex.
Yeah, Pekka is sitting on 540 ability power already, and that's only going to get worse over time. So he's almost becoming a threat. Mid-T gets popped here. Stan United gets used, so he has to re-engage. Both ultimates used. This is alright if nobody gets connected by the taunt here.
Taunt does not connect. Lulix flashes defensively. But Kasing, the sacrificial diver, the rest of H2K trying to reposition, but now it's a 4v5 and a potential barrier.
H2K just going in and looking for desperate fights, honestly. Probably already starting to talk about what went wrong, what can we do next. Look here what Mythi's doing as well. One of our new items in the game, the Harbinger, or Harbinger, however you want to pronounce it, to buff up this hyper carry in the late game. Niels is going to be such a big there.
He just gets headbutted in. Mythi with great positioning gets a knock-up onto Ryu as well. Wild Growth has come back up, and that means Ryu's been dropped. Odoamne will fall to another pulverized headbutt.
When you can knock an OF into your team confidently and not by accident, you have a sizable lead in the mid game.
Yanin, can he do what Piglet did in North America? I don't think so.
Gonna be needing a really big one for that one.
Not gonna be able to. Wow, Lulix gets caught out. Off screen there, looked like Peke was zoning out Yanin. Baron number 2 to Origin.
What have we learned from this game here? Game 1, we haven't seen Origin in 3 weeks. We saw H2K 3-0 Giants, completely destroyed him in the quarterfinal. What we've seen now here is that Origin, in these 5-on-5 team fights, are looking more coordinated and at least better at deciding when do we want to fight. H2K and their engages have been very reckless, honestly. It's just like Lulix going in trying to beat a hero, or they're pulling in without Odoamne being there. So big mistakes in the team fights, that needs to be fixed if they want to beat Origin.
I think reckless engages are fine with this composition, as long as you make him, you play him well, and everybody's on the same page. You can go in a little farther than you would normally go, because you have all these tools to buff that one-man Olaf, you know, and then you can flank with Lee Sin, but they're so telegraphed. Every single engage from H2K, we could have spotted from like 5 seconds away, unless it was this random flashing from Kasing at one point, where even Origin didn't even need to be ready because it was simply just 3-man advantage in that play overall. Origin are more well poised to take this game.
Talking about H2K not being on the same page, Dragon was up. They couldn't have really contested anyway. Kasing forced to flash defensively, while Origin pick up Dragon number 4. They're 1 away from Aspect. Now they don't even need it to finish this out. They will group themselves up towards middle. Ryu with no global. He's sticking around. He's also got Odoamne. This is a little bit of time with this inhibitor uncontested. It's down. That inhibitor turret's taken. H2K, a big mistake. Will lose their inhibitor as well.
Just for H2K, trying to look for some of the crazy plays here in the end. Engage there from Amazing.
Amazing engages. That's a great knockup. Ryu's already down. Niels grabs his 5th kill of the game. So it's yet another taunt. We did see that depth charge, or the kickback rather, from Lulix being used. Engaged from Mythi once more. Aggressive flash. They fought Kasing. He will be falling. He throws out the mine, but it does not matter. Baron, empowered minions at the 35th minute, will be taking down the Nexus turret on the left. Origin turn their attention to the second, and in 35 minutes, explosively dismantle H2K.
For me, it comes down to hesitation. Especially on H2K's side, that second Dragon, I think is something that just highlights the entire series so far, because they could have easily moved in, put up vision, worked together as a team, contested that, realized that they had the bigger power spike, goal advantage. They just weren't as aware of their surroundings, both in their map plays as in their engages. So often, you pointed it out, they went in. Odoamne, the crux of this composition, was nowhere to be found until about 10 seconds into the fight. Yeah, you're gonna lose then.
And the one time they had Odoamne with them in the mid lane, they were fighting basically all the way down to the tier 2 tower of Origin, which in the end costed them 2 kills because they got knocked back into the towers. And instead of them winning that fight with where the composition were probably the strongest, it went even, and Origin then was simply almost gifted when it came to the engages, how easy it was for them to play out team fights.
Now, I do think if Origin run a similar composition and play the lane swap the same way, they do leave areas where they can get exploited. Those 2 early towers could have fallen quicker with some better execution, and especially the part where they swap away Soas from the bot lane to the top lane to prioritize Niels in farm. That could have been an opening. Sadly enough for H2K, they didn't play that well enough, and Origin managed to capitalize and keep themselves in the early to mid game long enough to scale.
Yeah, went even for a very long period of time before those engages hurt H2K. We're going to head over to the analyst desk to take another closer look at Game 1.
Thank you so much, guys. Well, a lot of talk about the composition and which composition OG ran. And honestly, when we looked at it in the beginning, we thought that OG was outdrafted.
Yeah, this was an example of a game where H2K with a superior picks and bans phase in our minds, just the execution was so poor. It completely undid the superior draft. And, you know, coming out of the bans phase where we had so much priority on AD carries, the first pick Corki, everything looked great for H2K as we were going through the draft. They even managed to undo the potential Juggernaut composition, but a couple of the picks mixed in there kind of didn't sit too well with us at the desk.
I mean, yeah, I think the Lee Sin was kind of a bit weird, even when Rexa was open. And we know that Rexa is a pretty high priority jungler. I don't know why the Lee Sin is there, but other than that, I think H2K had like the perfect setup actually. When they first picked the Corki, they baited OG into picking Kog'Maw because that's what the normal answer is, Kog'Maw into Corki, and then they kind of countered that again with the Lulu Olaf, and I thought it was like a really clear and easy game for H2K because if Olaf gets onto the Kog'Maw with the Lulu ultimate, there's no way Kog'Maw can do anything. But to me, the engages were kind of really off for H2K, and it was a really easy time for OG to actually initiate the team fights, pick someone off, and then clear, like the backline was just assassinated by the Ahri then, which should not happen in the first case, because I thought the Ahri pick was personally like not that good, but it worked out in that game just because of the way the engages worked out and how the game kind of progressed, I think.
I think if we head back to the pick and ban, I would like to comment on what Origin did. I feel they had the possibility to completely destroy H2K in the draft simply by... the Kog'Maw is really good into Corki. This is considered a very good matchup for Kog'Maw because of the range disparity and the ult similarities. They kind of work the same way. And that part of it is fine. But they could have first rotation the Lulu, flexed it. I don't see why they would pick the Shen. They could have flexed a lot of things. They could have also flexed the Shen possibly with support. But they picked Shen, Alistar. I think this is probably the worst possible combination they could have done, because mid lane is not a role right now that has a lot of counters in a way. It's very like farm and you just relax and push. There's not really hard counters. And with that in mind, I feel it's way more important to last pick your top lane, because there are very like these matchups that eat other like matchups alive. For example, if you play Fizz into Maokai, this is like a good example, and it kind of forces the enemy to pick the Shen, for example, and you're put in a better position.
Yeah, maybe some of the first game syndrome, seeing what we could pick and maybe base the rest of our plans off that. Still a risky draft from OG. I think we can all agree on that, and you touched on it already. Some engages from the side of H2K were not very logical. Let's look at one of the replays where it actually starts off quite well for H2K when they counter OG jumping in the mid lane.
So right here, it starts off with this, like when Ahri doesn't have ultimate, she's very weak. She only has to rely on her Q and her flash, and it's very easy to pick her off with the Nautilus. You can see Cassian coming in from the left side. He obviously wants to catch the PK, tries to flash away, but it's not enough. And this starts off really well for H2K. This is a very good fight for them, but then all of a sudden Lulex does this. And all I'm thinking is, Betong get ready. Because this actually, it was a game-winning play that turned disastrous.
Potentially for H2K.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a potential game-winning play, but you know, the play that eventually would really win the game came again from unfortunately from Lulex around the Baron pit. We've got a replay of that one as well, because this was it went from bad to worse for Lulex's attempted engage right now, and you know, this we were looking at it and we're thinking, what is he going for here? Because he doesn't have the support of his team. Odoamne is so far away in the river. They talked about it on the caster desk. He had no real options to kick there. And once that is gone, the offensive flashes come in from Origin. The casters broke it down. Crepo was talking about 4 offensive flashes used because they know they've won this fight already. If one of your primary engage players in the jungle in Lulex is making engages like that on a Lee Sin when he's pretty far behind, they've got to at least change up their mentality going into game 2.
Well, there's a couple of questions here, right, for H2K. First, what springs to mind is, of course, communication in-game. How much can you put entirely on the shoulders of Lulex? How much do you think is him being possibly under pressure by someone who's waiting in the wings? Or is that a team as a whole faltering and not making the right calls? Maybe as Coach Yamato.
Well, these mistakes, these two, I think you could pinpoint them as individual mistakes. But I can still understand there might be some kind of pressure with Betong being on the bench. I think this kind of pressure could be like a double-edged sword. Otherwise, it might make you play better, but it could also make you play worse. You have to prove yourself in a way, and I think maybe that's what's affecting Lulex in this game.
Dexter.
I mean, if I would have to play with a sub sitting in my back, then I would be like, okay, if I don't do this and this correctly, then I might get subbed out, and no one wants that. Everyone wants to play the game. And if you make that one mistake in the game and know that you kind of messed up, I think it's pretty heavy on your shoulders, and you try to redeem yourself, try to go for that play. And when we saw this game-losing move, the second replay we just saw, where he just jumped in and baited his entire team into the death, followed by the Baron, then that's kind of probably like the pressure of him trying to redeem himself. But at the same time, it completely backfired and lost probably the game there. So
I can also see on the side of H2K going into a game 2 where they're now on the other side. This is the side where H2K will be red side. If they've got something specific planned with Lulex, they may keep him on. I don't think it's imperative that they go, oh, we have to swap him now. Maybe they'll stick with what they know. It's now up to Prolly to see exactly what H2K are going to do for game 2.
Well, we'll see what game 2 brings. And as we speak, Origen and H2K are gearing up for game 2 in this best of 5. And as we take a break, let's get a closer look at the European rookie of the split, Origen's AD carry Niels.
I played in different name tags, but also in different teams, like SK Prime, Intellectual Playground with Centurion actually. But other than that, I was playing solo queue all day long, like having 2 accounts in the top 10 of Challenger, waiting for, my time to come. I was 17. I told everyone that I'm not gonna be here next year because I'm gonna go pro no matter what, and they were like, nah, you're not. And then 6 months later, I showed them my first LCS offer. I asked my mother what she would think of it if I went pro. I showed her this contract that I had sent from a team. Ultimately, she was like, if this is what you want to do, then go ahead, like if this makes you happy, do it, School waits for you, but this LCS pro gaming life doesn't wait for you, I had another option that was a good team too, a really good team with a good support player as well, but eventually I went with Origen. I think that if I played in LCS the first split on a good team, I wouldn't have been as good as I am now. Not because of confidence or anything, but I think I learned more from playing with Mitty than I learned from anyone else.
I just started playing with him, some duo queues, and felt like he was really good, and I'm pretty hard to deal with. So it kind of felt alright, like someone I could work with, which is not something that works for everyone.
Like during one scrim in Tenerife, he told me to talk more, and I was like, what? What can I say, How am I supposed to talk? I don't know what to say. All I'm doing is hitting some creeps here and there, and then hitting tower, fighting a bit here, but what am I supposed to say? And he was like, you couldn't tell me what to say, but nowadays I'm saying all that stuff. So.
Come in, let's fight that. He was super focused on just being a robot, never talking, but by now he talks one of the most in the team as of now, which is very impressive. He tryhards to learn in terms of strategy, picks and bans, scouting, like what other ADs do, what he doesn't do, what is good, what is bad, reflecting on different stuff. I think he puts in a lot of work on his play, and it definitely shows he's a very hard worker.
Nice, guys!
One guy stood above the rest, going huge in his first week on the pro stage, helping his team start the split with a perfect 2-0, 14 kills, 14 assists over 2 games. Our first MVP of the summer 2015 is Origen's AD carry, Niels.
The way that he approaches the game is really mature for his age, so I think he's not really an amateur, but he's more a veteran in an amateur body.
I never felt that there was like pressure on me to perform or anything. And I wasn't really scared or anything. I didn't pick a jump that was safe or something, like a big vein. First time I ever played this jump in a long time,
Niels jumped on by Lulex. Does he have the damage? Condemn against the wall. Yes, he does. Niels is unstoppable.
Oh my God, nice.
It was really good that we were on Challenger Series for the first split, because it helped him realize, I don't know, maybe not that he doesn't have to be scared. We have all played for a really, really long time, and he hasn't played at all. I don't think he think about it like, oh, these guys have been playing for 5 years. These guys won like against Koreans once. These guys won against these guys. I don't think he ever thinks about that.
I don't know how to explain why it's confidence. I think it's just like, if you're good at the game, everyone else will play good as well, then you will win as a team. Even if one guy is having a bad game, I know that someone else will pick up what that guy is slacking, So I have confidence in my team, but in my own ability, I know that I'm a good player myself.
The thing about Niels is that right now, he's not only really good, but he's at that age that if he feels he's not good, he will put 20 extra games to become good in one day if needed. If he wants to become like the best ADC, he has the time, he has the mentality, and he has the skills for it. And I think he could do whatever he wanted.